Hey everyone, and welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're tackling a question that honestly sounds like it's straight out of a sci-fi movie, but it's actually being proven by modern science. So here's the big question, right? Can something you do just in your mind actually physically reshape the very structure of your brain? I mean, it sounds a little out there, but today, we're going to follow the evidence and see exactly where it leads. All right, so where's the proof? Let's dive into the hard science, because that's where this whole story really gets interesting. Okay, so our first big clue, it comes from this landmark study from researchers connected with Harvard. And this is the one that really kicked the door open on this whole idea. And what they found was, well, it was kind of mind-blowing. People who practiced mindfulness meditation actually showed a measurable increase in gray matter. And not just anywhere, but in the specific parts of the brain that handle things like memory, empathy, regulating your emotions, and even your basic sense of self-awareness. But here's the real kicker, the part that made everyone really sit up and pay attention. These physical, structural changes, they were visible after just 8 weeks. That's it. I mean, think about that. In less time than it takes to binge a new TV series, people were literally changing the physical makeup of their own brains. Now, you know how science works. One study is cool, but it's never the final word. But that Harvard study, it was just the tip of the iceberg. Since then, there's been this huge wave of research using all the cool new tech like fMRIs, and they've all pretty much confirmed and even built upon what that first study found. And when you look across all that research, a few key benefits just keep popping up again and again. First, people get better at handling stress, and that's linked to a calmer amygdala. You can think of that as your brain's little alarm system. We also see better thinking and decision-making, which is tied to the prefrontal cortex. That's kind of like your brain's CEO. And of course, better memory and emotional control, which points to the hippocampus. So, you're probably wondering, how on earth is this even possible? Well, the secret sauce is this incredible thing our brains can do called neuroplasticity. It's a fancy word for a really simple but powerful idea. Your brain isn't set in stone. It can literally reorganize itself, building new connections and strengthening old ones, all based on what you do and think. And get this, the changes can start happening almost instantly. There was one study that showed that even a single session of something called loving kindness meditation could alter brainwaves linked to memory and emotion. That suggests the process starts from the very first time you sit down to practice. Okay, so this all sounds amazing, right? Almost too good to be true. But before we get too carried away, we need a little reality check. This is all about practice. It's not magic. A lot of people have this idea that meditation is just about zoning out, taking a passive little mental break. But the science, it shows the exact opposite. It's an active workout for your brain. And it's not some quick fix you do once. It's a skill. And like any skill, you build it up with consistency. And just like with any workout, the results you get depend on a few things. The type of meditation you do matters. Are you focusing on your breath or on compassion? The length of your sessions plays a part, for sure. But the big one, the one that really matters for lasting change, it's regularity. That's what builds the mental muscle. So we've seen the science, we've looked at the data, but what does this actually look like for a real person in the real world? Let's take this out of the lab and into someone's life. For that, let's talk about Neha. She was dealing with a ton of pressure from exams, and she decided to put all this science to the test for herself. So Neha committed to just 10 minutes of mindfulness every single morning. And at first, nothing huge happened. But then around week 3, she started noticing these small shifts, like she could focus a little better during study sessions. And by the end of week 6, the changes were impossible to ignore. And here's the cool part. Her experience perfectly mirrored the research. She felt more self-aware, more compassionate, and this was the big one for her, she had a much better handle on her exam stress. Okay, so we've looked at the lab studies, we've seen a real-world example, so what's the final verdict? Let's circle back to that big question we started with. Here it is, plain and simple. Consistent practice strengthens your hippocampus, which means better memory. It fine-tunes your prefrontal cortex, giving you sharper focus. It quiets down that amygdala, so you become more resilient to stress. And it boosts your insula, which deepens your self-awareness. Every single one of these benefits is tied to a real physical change in your brain. So, can meditation physically change your brain? The answer is a resounding yes. But if there's one thing you walk away with today, let it be this. It's the consistency of the practice that turns those fleeting mental states into permanent structural changes in your brain. And that leaves us with one last thing to think about. You know, we go to the gym to train our muscles, right? So, knowing everything we've just talked about, if you could train your brain just like a muscle, where would you even start?